Hello there. I think this is episode 22. And we left off last week. We started on chapter 3 and right view. And so, per the usual, Bhikkhu begins each chapter kind of setting up the chapter, providing a little bit of context. And so, that usually takes several pages. And if you've been listening to any of my episodes, you know that I do meander. And sometimes I only get 1 or 2 pages done a week. Oh, yeah, we're still in Bhikkhu's commentary and setup, contextual stuff, which is great. And so probably not going to get to the suttas today regarding right view, and that's okay. Some complicated ideas, and I'm glad that, we're going to get to visit them throughout the book when we get into the suttas. Sometimes I find just actually reading the suttas really helps me. And you know what? I also use ChatGPT to help me as well. And I recognize all well and good that ChatGPT hallucinates, which means it doesn't always get it right. And you can look that up, and I'll provide some information in the Meditation Mind Discord server as well. But one of the Meditation Mind Discord server moderators introduced me to a Buddhist chatbot, which I'm pretty excited about. And so I'll drop that in the Meditation Mind Discord server as well. And I'm pretty excited about that. So we're just going to pick it up. We're going to pick it up right here at the top of page 116. And I'm on a different mic today, so hopefully this works out okay. The results of actions can return either immediately, later in this lifetime, in the next lifetime, or even in lifetimes after that. And that's from Sutta 57. In particular, these results tend to influence the level of one's rebirth, which can happen on one of many different levels: in hell, in the realm of common animals, in the realm of the hungry ghost, in the human world, or in the world of the devas. Rebirth on these levels is not permanent. Once the actions creating the conditions for a particular level of rebirth have run out, one will take rebirth on another level, created by other actions. This is in line with the principle that a temporary cause cannot form the basis for a permanent result. And I don't think I want to comment on this too much, because I know I've spent so much time kind of commenting on how I reconcile as a Westerner who grew up in a secular home, karma, right? Or the idea of rebirth. And I've also mentioned that I've had some experiences that I can't explain. And I, for one, am not particularly inclined to immediately dismiss them as not possible. I think there's a lot that we don't know, and I'm okay with that. But yeah, we've been talking about this quite a bit, right? The way karma works in Buddhism extends beyond this life. And, recently in the Meditation Mind Discord server, somebody was asking the question about, what is a bodhisattva? What is that? And there was some discussion about, what kind of operationalizing the Buddhist concept of the bodhisattva. And I think one of the responses was kind of articulating that, this is someone in human form that takes on the Eightfold Path to become enlightened, right? To become awake, to kind of see beyond the unhindered mind, right? To see beyond the fabricated mind. But there's another piece of it that's really important as well, I would say, with the bodhisattva, is that they've returned to human form, even though they could go on. But they've returned to human form to help others, to help alleviate their suffering, to help them work with their mind, or to introduce them to ways of working with the mind. And so, anywho, there's so much about this that I don't understand. I am not, as I repeatedly say, an academic, but I love that idea, I think, and forgive me my ignorance, I think, is it Catholicism? And I think it's not Christianity, but Catholicism. I could be wrong. I'm sorry if not to insult. That has saints, and isn't that kind of their function? I'm not sure if I'm right, so forgive me if I have that wrong. But just this idea, right, that someone has decided to sacrifice quite a bit of their own comforts to help other people not be in so much pain. Because, whether it be in the case of Buddhism, it's we're mostly interested in our kind of like, well, I don't want to go down that road, but I like the word suffering. Yeah. See earlier sections. I have a tendency to go on and on. I'm just going to keep reading. The obverse principle is also true. A permanent cause cannot create a temporary result, which means that the Buddhist cosmos has no unmoved mover as a first cause. And so here, it's really radical when you think about it, right? Think about what's being suggested here. There is no first cause, no singular first cause. And again, this goes, my understanding is that this goes back to, once again, conditions, right? What are the conditions in which the seed is ripening? So what are the cultural conditioning, the familial conditionings, the genetic conditionings, the epigenetic conditionings, all of it. It kind of works together to kind of create the now, and then the now, and then the now, and then the now. Right? And we can practice, for lack of a better word, to kind of work with that, to kind of work within that idea. So Buddha is suggesting that if we're here right now, we're in samsara, and that's just a loop. There is no first cause. There is no, and here's where I get way out of my understanding of Buddhism. And again, I come back to, this must be why, people split off, from Theravāda, or kind of split off, or not split off, but, continued the conversation, trying to understand some of these more esoteric concepts, particularly, again, if you're coming from the West, and speaking of conditions, right? Again, haven't been conditioned in this idea. And we can't know what we don't know, right? It's experiential. So it's not possible if one hasn't experienced it. It's okay. And I kind of forgot where I left off. So I'm just going to start here. In the Buddhist terms, the cosmos has an inconceivable beginning. And he discouraged speculation about the origin of the cosmos, saying that such speculation gets in the way of the issue at hand, putting an end to suffering. Similarly, the cosmos has no preordained end. It has the potential to continue indefinitely, as long as the beings in the cosmos keep making the choices leading to further rebirth. As the Buddha explained in many suttas, such as DN 1 and DN 27, the cosmos has already gone through countless rounds of evolution and de-evolution, and has the potential to go through countless more. This realization during the night of his awakening is what intensified his sense of terror and urgency. There's that word again. So go back and look at the introduction of the book. And Bhikkhu's talking about this idea of urgency in Buddhism. Urgent, right? Horror, right? Imagine if you really experience in some kind of altered state through just incredible, meditation practices that exist within the Eightfold Path, right mindfulness, right effort, right concentration. If you really see that for yourself, then you would kind of come to really know it for yourself. There's that gnostic, however you say that word, idea again, right? So yeah, wouldn't you want to do everything in your power? In a way, Christianity has a similar construct, right? There's this belief in this way. And because you care about people, you want to make sure that they hear the way. Now, Buddhism doesn't quite operate that way. It's a little bit different. We don't really, spread it out there, although you'll see plenty of people doing that on the YouTubes, right? And again, it's always, to my mind, even with these podcasts, right? It's not, to my mind, it comes back to this idea of intention that we've been talking about, right? Intention. That I don't think that this is the quote unquote right way. And Buddha, the Buddha, a Buddha, right? Some people will say the Buddha. I'll say a Buddha because it means to awaken, right? So he didn't, well, he does say that, but again, putting it in context, right? He doesn't say this is the right way, you should do it. Or you're, it's more of a, it's not external. You're not, it's not going around and judging and getting in there and trying to get in there and make people do the thing. Buddhism doesn't operate that way. And again, just see earlier sections, right? But yeah. Okay, so moving on. So going back to that last sentence here on the bottom of 116, this realization during the night of his awakening is what intensified his sense of terror and urgency over the potentials of karma, but it also proved to be liberating. When there is no ordained purpose for the cosmos that would impose duties on anyone, beings are all free to choose the path to the end of suffering. I'm so glad that we're on this today because I was talking to a friend of mine who's also a mother of young people. And when I say young, I mean that. What does that even mean, right? Young people. I'm in my 50s, right? So that could mean a lot of things. They're in. I think they're. I think it's like between middle school and high school or something like that. Those are the ages. She's telling me about some of these organizations, or these kind of, really what I would say from a psychological perspective would be kind of new religions that are kind of a natural sociological outcropping of the internet and social presence and kind of coming together and forming groups and telling stories and, creating community around stories, right? And some of these that she's talking to me about, they just sound, they're not going to lead to the end of suffering. Some of them are kind of based on different aspects of maybe one's particular culture, borrowing from different, maybe magical traditions or mystical traditions that come from the roots of their culture. And well, there's a lot going on there that I won't even begin to discuss, but I'll just say this. In Buddhism, what we're interested in is relieving suffering for ourselves. And in my particular practice, and the suffering of others. When there is no ordained purpose for the cosmos that would impose duties on anyone, beings are all free to choose the path to the end of suffering. And I feel like this is a really interesting time that we're living in right now. And again, I study media, right? And psychology. And so, yeah, why would someone want to study that? Well, because they're really interested in it, the intersection. And I'm really interested in kind of what the democratization of media has done to belief, faith, the stories we tell ourselves and the stories we tell at a kind of societal level. Maybe thinking about, Yuval Harari's book, Sapiens, and really he talks a lot in there about, this idea of how we humans are built on storytelling, shared stories, money. He uses as the first example. If we didn't all agree, even though we don't know each other, and a lot of us hate other members of our kind of, species, we can't all agree on that story, this piece of paper, this piece of metal. So, what kind of world do you have? And I don't know if I was teaching again, and when you're a teacher, you keep office hours. So a teacher is also a mentor. For the students who come and visit their teachers during office hours, well, that's where the mentorship happens. The mentorship and then just kind of the support. And if I was still in that role, I think what I would say to young people who are exploring their cultural history, and yeah, most of them, all of us, all cultural histories have a background that includes magic of some kind or another. And there's just a rich history there that we all have access to now, right? Because we all have access to all the things, all the information. And now we also have AI as a moderator that can bring it even more quickly. It's not perfect. It still makes lots of mistakes, right? But I would just say this, that more information is not better. You know, going back to this earlier section, to my view, and I think probably to a lot of, to the view of Buddhism, we'll say, right? That you're not getting too kind of hung up on a first origin story or any of the rest of that. You know, it's you're more interested in this last part, choosing the path that ends suffering. And if your path is encouraging suffering, promoting suffering, the suffering of others, your suffering, well, in this practice, in this tradition, then what we would suggest is that it will come back around. And I get it, this idea that, oh, you know, that's so convenient. I mean, how cushy and how cozy. You can just tell yourself that you don't have to worry because something's going to come back around. Well, I'll just speak for myself. I think that when you get a glimpse of all of this through practice, you don't need for it's treading into weird waters for me here. And so I think any path that one finds, you know, that promotes really unskillful means and methods, it's illogical from a Buddhist view. It's illogical. You know, if you, to my view, if you're lucky enough, or maybe not, I don't know, you know, to experience, you know, a little bit of this idea through practice, well, it just seems illogical to be kind of hung up on all of these kind of quote unquote self-identified ideas like revenge. Make them pay. We'll show them. I'll show them. Although, boy, it feels really, really delicious in the body. You know, it gets you all kind of ramped up and ready to go. You know, I think I mentioned before that, you know, I have a hot temper anyway. And so, yeah, getting pissed off is a rush. Adrenaline rush, you know. Yeah. Oh, yeah? Retaliation escalates conflict. It doesn't resolve it. And then so someone might say, well, I don't want to resolve it. I want conflict. I'm conflicted. I want conflict. I'm conflicted. I want conflict. I'm conflicted. I want conflict, right? It makes sense to be caught up in that wheel. It does. I've been, wow. And the more that one has been harmed and the more harmed that one feels, depending on the temperament, the more one might want revenge. Make them pay. This idea, right, to protect the ego, our identification with ego, our sense of pride. And I get it. I get that that's why Buddhism would maybe be sorely rejected in some cultures. And I really get that. But I think most ancient wisdom traditions warn humans about pride. In Buddhism, the self, that pride, being proud of ourselves, that self, well, that is the source of our suffering. That's it, root. That's the root of our suffering right there. The sense of ourself, that we have a self that's separate. Self, this is me. This is me. This is mine. This is what I like. I like this song. I don't like that song. Right? Oh, hello there.
Hello.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me? Okay.
It's great.
Good.
Sure. The last time my mic had problems, so I can speak.
Yes. Yeah. Would you like to read or just listen? Or
sure. I want to read too.
Okay.
Where are you?
And let me just ask you, are you okay? Do you know about that I record this for a podcast that I put on YouTube that's unlisted?
I know.
You know.
I listened to
Okay. So you're okay to be in that? You're okay to be in that? Because if you read your voice.
Yeah, sure.
All
I
right.
have no problem with that.
Well, great. I love it. I love it. Okay. So I just finished. Oh, this is perfect timing. So the top of page 117, and it's the complexity of karma.
The complexity of karma, although the basic principle underlying actions and their results is fairly simple, the way in which those results work out can often be complex. This partly because a person can perform many types of action in a single day, not to mention the image the Buddha used to illustrate the principle of karma was a field planted with seeds. Some seeds are ready to sprout, others are not. Where and what you are at the present moment is simply a measure of which seeds are currently sprouting. It's possible that you may have many other seeds, potentially better, potentially worse, simply waiting for the opportunity to sprout. This means that a person's current position in life is not an accurate measure of all the seeds in his or her karmic background.
Wow. What do you think about that?
It means that uh, our action is like a seed, which might or might not have result, right?
Yeah.
Just like fuzzy stuff. For example, if I do this, it has 50 or 80% of creating future results. Is like that to me.
Yeah, I like too that.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and you know what I like too that you read? I think it's very hopeful. This means that a person's current position in life is not an accurate measure of all the seeds that are possible. When I meet people who are going through a dark time, I think that ideas like this are very exciting, and I know they were very exciting for me. You said you listened to my podcast, so my beginnings were difficult, and so ideas like this were very, very exciting. This idea that wow, I might have some agency here and learning how to work with the mind, and maybe having a little bit of I might be able to work with these seeds some in this lifetime. Yeah.
It means that our current circumstance, our current sorry, I'm not a native English speaker, so there's something I can't really describe with English. So yeah, just forgive me for that.
No, I only speak one language, so what am I going to say?
It's because I think we are living as a result of our past seeds, or putting into the result of other person past seeds, like past actions as well. That's what I think.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
So you said, just to make sure I understand, I think what I heard you say is that you believe that in this lifetime we are influenced by the seeds that we planted in previous lives, our previous incarnations, and then as well as, maybe this part I might not have gotten. Did you say as well as the seeds of others, or am I getting anywhere near?
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think that our current state is not effectively by our actions, but actions of others as well. That's what I think. Not completely because of us.
As individuals in a body. Is that what you mean? Yeah.
That's what I think. And you mentioned past life. This might be, if it exists. This might be our initial state. For example, you are grow up difficultly. What I think, you are in a very difficult situation when you grow up. It might be the result of your past life.
Yes.
Because your past life you was not doing okay. But I think it might be because of your parents.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, thank you. Yes.
So that's what I think.
Okay. Yeah. No. And this is so interesting. And to me, as someone who grew up without a kind of supernatural kind of idea, and I think I've talked about this in other episodes. What it asks people to do is to have faith, like Christianity or Catholicism, right? Where you could walk up to somebody and you could say, have you ever seen God yourself? And, they probably haven't, but they're investing a lot of faith, there's belief there. I guess in Buddhism, right, that would be part of the fabricated state. Even that. But it makes sense to me. I'm open to it. I'm open to this idea. Absolutely. I would never say that I believe in anything without seeing it for myself. I would never say that. But the Buddha tells us not to.
What does he say?
He says, see for yourself, meditate.
Okay.
So I meditate a lot for a long time, and I have for a long time. And I've seen some pretty wild things. But I mostly don't know. I only know weird things that I've seen through extended periods of meditation that lead me to believe that there's a lot more that we don't know than what we think we do know.
What evidence have you seen?
No evidence, because in the earlier section of this chapter, Right View, it says you can't provide evidence to anyone. It's just because it's experiential, so there is no evidence. But
you can describe it with word, which is
No, you can't. I don't
near enough.
You know what it would be like to me? Like, can you think of a time when you were in just unbelievable pain, excruciating pain?
Yeah.
Do you think you could explain exactly what you were feeling in words?
Extreme pain. I think we can't really describe, because as you mentioned in this book before, words is a boundary. That there are things that can't describe precisely using just words alone. But I believe that language can create a close enough image to relate, because because pain is personal, but also interpersonal, right? You can't really describe all the personal stuff, but can have other relate to interpersonal, like what the path is, because the path Buddha create the path because there are interpersonals in the human experience, I think. And I believe you can describe that.
So in other words, you're saying that you could try to use, because I think that's what we do in the Discord server here a lot, right? Is that we're trying to use language to explain something that you experienced, that you just had it happen to you. It'd be like if someone has never been in a car accident before and they're saying, oh my gosh, tell me exactly what that felt like. And you can do your best, you can do your best to be well. I remember, but even then you say remember, right? That's just thought, that's not experiential. But you're right, you could use words. I mean, I don't use a whole lot of words because that's already happening all over the server. I think we have enough of those words already in here.
What do you mean by there's a lot of words in here?
people using words to try to understand what meditation feels like.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't explain what meditation feels like. You just have to meditate. Even Buddha tells us that.
Yeah.
It's got to sit. You know, you can't, it can't be explained. That's why he says, don't listen to what I say, see for yourself, meditate. You know, it can't be explained in language. It can be, I can describe to you my subjective experience of what it's like to taste chocolate, but you're not going to experience my subjective. It's, again, that's also Buddhism, right? The fabricated state. It's all impermanent stuff that we're kind of perceiving through all of this, our own fabricated conditioning, right? So it's I don't know how you could use language to kind of wrangle that down and be operationalized when it's all impermanent. You can't put something in a pin that's impermanent, you know?
Okay. I will continue to read the next two passages.
Okay, great.
Okay.
All right.
Another reason for the complexity of karmic consequences is that it's possible to have a major change of heart in life if skillful when soften the effects of your past unskillful actions, or if unskillful when weaken the effects of your past skillful action. In terms of field image, they would be like watering many good seeds to crowd out bad seed, or bad seed to crowd out good.
Oh, great.
I need to think about it a little bit.
Oh, great. Okay, great. Well, I know in earlier sections, he was talking about, this is why, you have the Eightfold Path, this is, we're in right view, so this idea that if we recognize that it's all fabrication, and we recognize that, and we kind of recognize that we have a little bit of agency there through the practice, we might be conditioned, but there is, if you go back and you look at earlier sections, and again, I'm not a scholar, but those 7 chariots, those different entry points, we may, irregardless of the entry point that we come in at, we do have some agency in Buddhism to either water good seeds or water bad seeds. There is a sense of agency there, is what I my understanding of Buddhism. Yeah. How about you? What's your take on this section?
There's a lot of skillful stuff, and I think it's like interchangeable. We can choose what to nurture, and it's my lessen bad effect and enhance good effect of our past actions. That's what I think.
Nice.
I don't know why they describe things so complicated in here. Skillful, unskillful. It's not really.
Yeah. Are you
you
talking about like because I speak English, and so you've got these English translations of the Pāli Canon, which I think is in Sanskrit, right? And so I think they try to get the closest definition that they can to the original language that the Pāli Canon, I guess was. I don't know. Why is that complicated? Skillful and unskillful. What's complicated about that?
Skillful. Why do you think they use skillful?
I think because it's skillful.
Okay, let it be. Okay, I will continue reading.
Okay, great.
Skillful. A third reason for the complexity of karmic consequences is that the actual experience of the results of actions will depend on your mind state at the time when they ripen. If you are small-hearted, lacking in virtue and discernment, and if pleasure and pain can invade your mind and remain, then the ripen results of unskillful action and be painful. If you are large-hearted, trained in virtue and discernment, and if pleasure and pain cannot invade your mind and remain, the ripening results of unskillful action will barely felt. The Buddha compares this to putting a lump of salt in a small cup of water, a large, clear river. The water in the cup will be too salty to drink, but the water in the river will still be potable. In other words, just because you have done something bad doesn't mean that you deserve to suffer for it. After all, the Buddha taught a path to the end of suffering. Regardless of whether that suffering is deserved or not, you can train yourself to develop more skillful state of mind, both to produce skillful actions and to, I don't know this word.
Ameliorate. I know that's a tough one, right?
Ameliorate unskillful karma from the past. Okay.
Wow. There's a lot there, right?
So if you are, well, this means if you are open enough, you can,
Yeah.
your past action cannot, affect you much. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I know there's so much here. I would say if you, I'm gonna skim on down here to training. Okay. So if you were large-hearted, trained in virtue and discernment. So here's where maybe going back into earlier sections of the book, where they're talking about, what is virtue and specifically what is discernment. So, and then if you listen to the podcast where I comment on it, I've given like a lot of examples, but I think one really good example to me of this in action. So again, in the earlier part of the book, it talks about this idea of feeding, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and here he's using the analogy of the seed, right? So we have this seed, and as you noted, right, it's seed from past lives, maybe seeds from our families. Again, and I think about, I know a little bit about my grandparents and my great grandparents, and yeah, it's a family affair, right? So we've got these seeds, but Buddha's telling us here in this life, if we follow the Eightfold Path, if we train the mind in discernment and virtue, right? If we train the mind, let me go back. Let me just get to it where train the mind. Then you can remain. Then the ripening results of an unskillful action. Let me just read this again. Okay. If you were small-hearted, lacking in virtue and discernment, and if pleasure and pain can invade your mind and remain, and the ripening results of an unskillful action will be pain. Okay. The Buddha compares this to putting the water in the cup will be just okay. In other words, just because you've done something bad doesn't mean that you deserve to suffer for it. After all, the Buddha taught a path to what you're seeing here over and over again, and you will continue to see, is the word train, meditate, follow the Eightfold Path, train. Last week it talked about don't just train in a half-ass way, take it seriously, train. So in other words, I was, right before you came on, I was talking to someone earlier today who was telling me about what's becoming popular in a lot of high schools, I guess, where she lives in the United States. And it's a particular kind of religion that's new that I've never heard of. And retaliation, making people pay, making people pay no matter what is really important to this religion because they believe in some ancient gods, I guess, and that, you need to sacrifice. You need to sacrifice to those gods. Well, according, from a Buddhist view, which, I am, so I'll just say from my view, that is not skillful because it creates suffering. And if someone continues to water those plants, in other words, if someone continues to harbor this need for revenge, that blackens and hardens a heart until there's no joy left. And that's dukkha. That's suffering. So that's kind of how I take this passage. Again, that idea of hope, that we don't have to suffer for, I don't have, my mother, my grandmother, my mother's mother used to beat the crap out of her. And that's karma. And I have even crazier stories than that in my family, all kinds of mental illness. It runs on both sides. Well, that's karma, right? If you're going to get into Western psychology, then we call that mental illness running in my family. We call that having a predisposition to mental illness running in my family. But Buddha says here, hey, guess what though? We can train in virtue. We can train in discernment so that, I can have a kid and either I can beat the crap out of my kid, or I can train so that I don't beat the crap out of my kid. The suffering stops with me.
I think it's important that we can change and make our environment better in a deeper, in a higher level, right?
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
Did you say higher level? Is that?
Because it's not in the surface of the action, but in the result, in the
Yeah.
yeah,
I think
I don't know.
I know. No, this is so great. You know what I love about this? The language barrier is great. I love it because it makes me cognate, and I like that. And the fact that you can speak more than one language is wonderful because I am horribly monolingual. I think I heard you use the word higher state. Is that the word you used, higher? Would you mind repeating?
Yeah.
That? Okay.
I don't really mean higher, but the at a meta
compassion.
Yeah.
Helpful, loving, beyond ourselves, like that.
Like the direction of, yeah. You can train to alter the direction of,
yes,
of your future. Like that's what I understand from your talk.
Yeah.
We can training to change the direction because we are partly living in the limitation of our past.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we can change a little bit.
We can. Yeah. Oh, I love that. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. I love that. Yeah. I think, well, that's just, again, I'm not a scholar, but that is my understanding, is that, yeah, if we're really unconscious, and I talked about this last week about, I got to a section in the suttas a couple of weeks ago where Buddha's talking about how important it is to, to respect your parents. And I was kind of commenting on how difficult that was for, and how that has been a struggle for me lifelong, but, I'm very close to my parents now, but this idea that, I could train, I could harbor, I could hold on to, so here, I'll just finish with this thought. And to me, we're always meditating. If we are unconsciously repeating habitual thinking patterns, and we may not even be aware of it, right? But we've learned somewhere habituated thought patterns, and we think them all the time. And maybe we're anxious, and so there's thoughts that are arising there. Oh, I'm so stupid, or oh my God, I would never. And maybe we're not even aware of that, right? So there's all this going on. And that could be a byproduct of our conditioning. Or as you said, the karma, Western, that keeps slipping in, the karma, that's the karma ripening. But he's saying right here, regardless, right? Yes, like you said, I had a pretty rough childhood, and I'm totally open to the idea that maybe that's my karma ripening. Okay, but here I am now, and Buddha's saying, okay, we're here now. We can train now. And like you said, in my country, somebody got elected that scares the crap out of me, and I wasn't real happy. Now I could feed my mind by unconsciously meditating hatred, anger, rejection of anyone who agreed with this person, or I could train in metta, like you said. I could train in compassion. Everybody sees things from their own lens.
Mm-hmm.
And I
so
open
true.
my heart to that idea. Is that true, Sarah? Hold my heart, take deeper breaths. Yes, Sarah, yes, that's true.
Yeah.
Not everybody agrees with you. Okay.
I think it's important to realize that you can change, because sometimes for myself, my own experience, I feel stuck because I don't know I can't change. To know that I can change the current situation, whatever it is, which opened my mind. It's like just a kind of unlock a new skill for me. I think just to realize that
sorry to interrupt
I can
you.
change.
Yes, you can change. You can change. And I like how what you just said there, that that's another thing I find hopeful about for me. I'm not and I'm not comparing Buddhism against anything else because I'm very ignorant, to be honest. But I'll just say one of the things I do like about Buddhism is that there is this underlying notion that there is something that I can do. I can train. And I think one thing that I see happen sometimes is, we want it. I live in the West, right? And so in Western culture, we want everything like tomorrow. We want everything yesterday. I want it now. I want it now. I want it now. And, the thing with the Eightfold Path, particularly when you get into like right mindfulness, right concentration, those take practice. And in the beginning, they're not enjoyable. It's hard work. And as we were talking about earlier, and I love what you said about language, the importance of language. It's hard to explain to people, when you say it's hard work, our mind immediately leaps to what that means, what hard work means to us. And for some people, it may not be hard work. I know meditation for me was very hard work because it was very hard for me to redirect my attention and just to notice my mind at all. And then to be able to train it. Like you said, you use that word train, right? And again, it shows up here a lot. Buddha talks about training a lot, that over time as we practice. And I know in the beginning when I practiced, it got worse before it got better. And that's where a lot of people quit, I think. And I get why. It reminds me of like training. I was a long distance runner. In the early stages of training, when I would kind of up my mileage, right? In the beginning of upping my mileage, kind of, I would always up it incrementally, but I would always have this jump that was a little bit extra, maybe every couple of weeks. And that little jump right there felt like I was going to die. And that's what meditation is like. That's exactly what meditation is like. And so if someone can just kind of, and that's why you'll hear on here a lot, people talking about box breathing or these little tricks that you can do to kind of train long enough to be able to actually see for yourself this kind of dissolving and this spaciousness that happens between our experience of reality and kind of our reaction to it. Like how we are right now, right? Like people, they hear something they don't agree with and how dare you? And, and there's this reactivity, so you can train in thank you for pushing me to use words. This is a great challenge. Okay. So you can train and have space, right? So this to me is kind of what happens, right? So something happens, right? So condition arises, right? Okay. And so it arises, right? So like, let's say the condition, let's say something right now, my cat comes in, condition arises, my cat comes in, rare. He does this all the time. Okay. Now, if I haven't trained and I'm already conditioned and to be really anxious and just fearful, and that's my conditioned state, then I might be, my reaction might be to get up and yell, snap, right? But if I train, then when my cat does that while I'm talking to you, I might feel that annoyance. But because of the meditation, right? There's a moment there where I can just go, hey, buddy. And then I actually start to pet him. And then he usually calms down. Now, that might come naturally for some people because of, as you say, perhaps their karma is ripe to a degree where they don't experience the kind of reactivity that I do and did when I came in here. It was bad. It was really bad. And usually directed at myself. You're so stupid. You're never going to, it was mostly things like that. And then I would make decisions that were, right, we're talking about cause and effect, right? So we're talking about effects now that are further down the karmic stream that were now ripening from the seeds that I was planting around. You're not good enough. You're so stupid. You're never gonna. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does means a lot to me because I feel related to your story, and also to see one idea of training in different view with example, like your example of distant running.
Yeah,
is because even the idea is kind of simple. We can train and we can change. It's kind of very simple, but to put it in different context, to like you shed a light your life into training, meditation and running, which helped me understand it better because something like we can change is easy to understand at the first place, but to actually understand it enough to implement in very stressful circumstance, like when you are, for example, when you're being in very difficult emotional state, it's really hard to stop and to put it into action. Like we just that state of emotion just blindfolding us.
Yeah.
But by have a different viewpoint from your point of view, I think I will use it better in many other circumstances.
Yeah, and if it's okay too, I'll just say that. And again, remember that this is my culture. I come from the culture that I come from, and I don't want to superimpose or try to impose my view on you or anybody else who might be listening to our conversation. But I'll also say that this idea of discernment, right? He's talking about training in virtue, but he also talks about training in discernment. And if you go back and you look at earlier sections about this idea of, what is the function of another human in Buddhism? It's the function of the admirable friend. And so if you go back and you look at that, then I'll say that it's not, I don't think that in Buddhism we're expected nor asked to, in the moment, to stay, first of all, to stay in situations where, for instance, we're being assaulted, right? That would not, trying to stay in that situation. Now, if you're forced to, and you have to, to me, I think of like, if I could think of like Western references, I'll think about like books I've read in the past. You asked if I read poetry, and I try to keep it on this book, but oh yes, I love to read, yeah, reading is awesome. But in my culture, if I think about the Anne Frank story, that she was in a Holocaust, she was in a concentration camp, so she couldn't leave, right? Or a kid who's living in a house where, when I was a child and I was much, much younger and I couldn't get away, right? I couldn't get away from what was happening to me. And Anne Frank couldn't escape the concentration camp. And so what would Buddha say we could do? What would Buddha say that we could do so that we're not suffering, even though we're in a concentration camp or we're in a home where we're being beaten, right? Or we're in we can manage it until we can get out. And if we can't get out, then we just have to keep managing it. We can continue to train, but I would just say, at least in my culture, I would always want to be really careful about, because I'm also, I would never, like, for instance, I would never say in my culture to someone who's, I'll just say this for anybody who's listening, in my culture, and what I believe, someone who is a survivor of abuse, I would never stay with an abuser. I don't think that's good discernment. That's bad discernment.
There's one thing I want to ask is, what do you mean by bad discernment?
So, if you go, I'm trying to think of where it is this would be in the last couple of episodes, or the last part of chapter 1, where he's talking about, well, he also gets into, right, you know what might be an interesting way to look at this idea of discernment? And I'm just going to share it with you because I know that when I read it, it really connected something for me. And it's also earlier in this book, and I can't remember which sutta it is, but it's in one of the suttas where he's talking about this, and he's saying, he's talking about right livelihood, and he's talking about how, you shouldn't be taking a job where, what was the language that was used? Well, it had something to do with trying to control people, coerce people, make people do what you want. That's not discernment. So if we have people in our lives who are like that and we're staying with them, we're not being discerning. Not in Buddhism, we're not. Maybe in other religious traditions, but not in Buddhism. I mean, it's really clear in the suttas,
Mm-hmm.
But, sometimes we're stuck. And again, here I could get into a lot of trouble, right? Like, I don't know how old you are. I don't know. I don't want to recommend that you run away from home. Or I don't know what your situation is. This is my opinion, right? And this is my opinion, my interpretation of what Buddha is saying, and there's, and he was really clear that we can't be born into Buddhism, because Buddhism is a practice, it's a path. And that if we're really going to stay on the path, then conditions need to be right. And that sometimes means making really hard decisions. And that's my understanding of it, but that's just me. And I didn't come up in the original origins, nor the original culture. And there are some cultures that believe that just because I'm a woman, I'm not allowed to have that view. Well, I don't care what they think. They're not more important to me than I am to me. And that's my Buddhist practice talking right there. I just saw the time. I don't know about you, but I think I have to head out of here.
You have my permission to do
thank you.
Whatever you want.
Okay. I really enjoy talking to you, I love disagreeing with people too, because I don't think that I'm right. I just know what I found for me works for me, so thank you for conversing with me.
Okay. I think it's really nice to talk with you. I like your tone, your voice, and it's great to have someone to discuss, to have the benefit of the view of others. Right?
Me too. Thank you.
Yeah, it means a lot to me to see the same contact, the same idea, what is taught in the book.
Yeah.
By Buddha in different context. It's very important to me. And you offer a wonderful, colorful view, also painful, but yeah, it's helped me very much. And I think it's helped you somehow to put it in word, to describe it, to see it better. I think it's beneficial, both of us.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. All right. I'll see you soon.
Yeah. See you later.